chess friends, how are you? Today, we'll explore a straightforward, powerful chess opening for white. Super Grandmaster Stockfish is here to teach you. We're focusing on the initial move, knight c3, a move that will likely catch your opponents off guard. Your opponents are often unfamiliar with this opening, which is great because you get to repeat the same moves. When you play knight c3, usually they will advance one of their central pawns, either to e5 or d5. We'll discuss both moves, but d5 can be trickier. It lets them develop pieces, control the center, and even threaten your knight by pushing the pawn forward. So what should you do? Before moving on, let me tell you a quote about life. Nothing can hold back someone who's both inspired and determined. You respond with e4, striking back at them. Another advantage of this opening is its flexibility. For example, against the Scandinavian defense, if you start with e4 and your opponent plays the Scandinavian, you can switch to knight c3, seamlessly transitioning into the same setup. Now, let's delve into our main topic. Black might either capture or advance their pawn to d4. Pushing the pawn to d4, challenging white's knight, is more aggressive and poses a greater challenge for white. This will be the main line we'll focus on. If black takes back on e4, you can recapture, leading to a fairly symmetric setup. However, your knight is centrally placed, giving you a slight advantage. In this scenario, you face no problems. You'll continue your development smoothly with moves like d4 and knight f3, establishing a solid position. If black advances their pawn to d4, it might seem they've put you in a tight spot, forcing your pieces to retreat and giving black a spatial edge. It appears highly favorable for black. However, the situation is more complex than it looks. The intriguing part is that not only do you have winning chances in this main line, but you also stand to win in black's second most popular response. It might seem surprising, but in both of these main scenarios, you can secure a win in the next 5 moves. This claim might seem unbelievable, so let's look at the statistics. In the lower right corner of the screen, you'll find the stats. The most frequent move by black is displayed at the top. In this situation, after black plays pawn e4, we retreat our knight. The most common response from black is pawn e5, leading us to reposition our knight towards the king side. This maneuver not only activates our bishop, but also places our knight in a proactive stance, primed to support any forthcoming assault. Typically, black will play pawn c5 next. In response, you move your knight to f3, targeting the e5 pawn. Consequently, black will likely defend this pawn by deploying their knight to c6. In this position, it's strategic to activate your bishop, positioning it on either c4 or b5. Bishop c4 is the more aggressive option, directly targeting the pawn that acts as a gateway to your opponent's king. This is where the game gets interesting. Black's usual move, knight to f6, surprisingly results in an immediate disadvantage, turning a seemingly natural move into a significant mistake. At this point, you can exploit this by moving your knight to g5, joining forces with your bishop to threaten the f7 pawn. This sets you up to potentially capture with the bishop and target the king. Alternatively, capturing the f7 pawn with the knight forks black's queen and rook, putting black in a precarious position with no adequate defense for the pawn. The best black can manage is bishop to e6, but after you exchange and win the pawn, your position strengthens significantly. Additionally, your bishop becomes extremely active, making it challenging for black to castle. Following this, you'll proceed with straightforward aggressive moves like d3, castling, playing pawn to f4, and moving knight to f5. If we analyze this position, it likely indicates a significant advantage for white. I am showing this position as +1 points. However, in practical terms, white's position is even more dominant, as it's much easier to play. The statistics strongly support this, showing that white wins the majority of these games. It gets more interesting now. The most frequent move black makes, knight to f6, leads to a losing position because your knight to g5 is very strong, and black can't defend well. What about black's second most common move? That's moving the bishop to d6. In response, you just play your usual pawn to d3 move, which brings your bishop into action. Now, check this out. Black's usual move, knight to e7, once again falls into trouble with the same response, knight to g5. This variation is a bit different but even more favorable for you. You're attacking their f7 pawn twice, and their most logical defense is to castle. At first glance, this seems like a solid move for black. Black might seem to secure their f7 pawn by castling. But then you intensify the attack by moving your queen to h5, this move heaps pressure on black, threatening their pawn, king, and overall castle position, and let me tell you a quote in Sutton. Set goals so big that you have to grow into your fullest potential to achieve them. The immediate threat of queen taking on h7 forces black to respond, usually with pawn to h6, however, this sets the stage for knight takes f7, leading to a catastrophic breakdown of black's position. When the knight captures on f7, it attacks the queen and creates multiple threats, with the powerful bishop on c4 aligning with the king. Any knight move will check the king, consequently, black is forced to sacrifice the rook. After the queen captures, it's still check to the king, when the king moves to h7. You not only gain material but also sustain the momentum of your attack. Moving the knight to h5 is a popular strategy to target the g7 pawn, and it's a strong move for white. However, an even more powerful play in this situation is bxh6, leading to total demolition. Black can't capture with the pawn due to the pin. The major threat now is queen takes g7. If the king captures the bishop, then the queen can return to h5, resulting in a checkmate. This strategy effectively addresses the move pawn to d5. Regarding black's other frequent move, pawn to e5, you have options. Naturally, you could play pawn to e4, transitioning into familiar openings like the Vienna game or the bishop's opening, which is completely okay, but to add a twist, you can opt for a more distinctive approach. Start by moving knight f3, directly challenging the pawn on e5. Black is unable to advance their pawn, because you control the critical square and would just capture the pawn if they tried. Consequently, black must find a way to defend it. After they do, you escalate the tension by pushing your pawn to d4, intensifying the central pressure. Black remains unable to push the pawn forward as you dominate the square, leading to a situation where a trade occurs, and your knight can recapture. Now, you've reached a distinctive position. Even if you're not very familiar with it, you'll quickly learn how to navigate it in the next few minutes. Plus, remember that your opponent is likely clueless about this setup. So you're in a safe spot. When your opponent plays knight f6, there's an enjoyable tactic you can use to gain the upper hand. You can play bishop g5, pinning the knight, which often leads black to respond with bishop e7, a common move in other situations but not the best here. This move opens the door for your knight to leap to f5, suddenly putting pressure on black's bishop and the pawn on g7. This rapid development can quickly turn the position unfavorable for black, if your opponent decides to castle. You can capture on e7, and the queen will likely recapture. Thanks to the pin, you can advance your knight to d5, creating a highly troublesome situation for black. This move attacks the queen, increases pressure on the knight, and targets the c7 pawn, while your bishop exerts additional pressure along the diagonals. Should the queen move, you can then trade on f6, delivering a check to the king. This exchange opens up black's king and disrupts their pawn structure, weakening their position significantly. In this scenario, you could also opt for a queen exchange, highlighting a strategic misstep by your opponent regarding pawn structure, as they end up with a severely compromised setup. Additionally, you have the opportunity to capture and win a pawn immediately, steering the game into a winning endgame for you. With their pawns weakened, you can castle queenside, target and capture the exposed pawn, firmly placing you in a winning position. Let's review this variation again. After your opponent plays pawn to e5, you immediately challenge this pawn, regardless of how your opponent defends it, whether with a pawn or a knight. You assertively push your pawn to d4. In this scenario, the most typical response for black is to exchange pawns on d4. The reason black often opts for this exchange is that they are not fully aware of the strategic implications. They don't realize that capturing leads to a mistake on their part. By exchanging, they inadvertently assist you in activating your pieces and securing a superior position. Observing the overall setup, you might notice that while the pawn structure remains relatively balanced, your active piece placement grants you a significant advantage in the position. Following black's knight f6, you can proceed with a straightforward development, such as playing bishop g5, applying pressure. Then, you might consider castling queenside. If your opponent also castles, you can then advance in the center with e4, setting up the potential push to e5. This results in a position that is easy for you to play, allowing you to make standard moves while your opponent remains passive. Alternatively, you could opt for a more aggressive approach by pushing e5 directly. This often proves effective, as after the pawn exchange, your rook suddenly targets the opponent's queen. Should the queen attempt to retreat, you are in a prime position to capture the vulnerable pawn on c7, intensifying your attack. After your opponent makes a move, like h6 or bishop e6, you can play bishop b5, a typical development move for white. This move is often seen in other contexts, but here, it's particularly powerful because it targets the queen. If the queen moves, you can capture on e7. This sequence not only gives you a superior position but also a decisive advantage, setting you up favorably for the remainder of the game. Now you're equipped to use this opening when playing as white, and it might become your go-to strategy in many or all your games. That was our today's chess traps and tricks. If you enjoyed my content, then consider like and subscribe to my channel. Wish you all the best. Bye bye, see ya.